Welcome to today's episode of Preparing for College, hosted by College Financial Prep. So excited to have our guest today, Holly McClain from Holly McClain Coaching. And while College Financial Prep focuses on the financial needs of teens that are going to college, Holly focuses on the mental health care needs of our teens. So excited to have her today. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
You're very welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Yes. So I work with teens and young adults, and I help support them on their journey to adulthood. So there are a variety of different ways that I support. And most of the time, the work that I do has a lot to do with supporting the teenagers through navigating high school and also transitioning off to college. So they are dealing with lots of things on their mind, the transition, navigating high school in itself, and then all of the little bumps that come along the way, which is, the anxiousness, the stress, the overwhelm, and just simply all the adulting type of tasks that come along with this transition that they're going through right now from high school to adulthood.
How'd you get into this area?
So it's been about 20 years. 20 years ago, I started off in education. And I worked at the high school level and at the middle school level. And I started my career in continuation high school, which is working within the public school system with at-risk youth. And at the time, I was teaching English. I had an English degree. And I thought, oh my gosh, there are so many other things that these kiddos are going through. I would really rather be supporting them with that. Who cares about Shakespeare? Let's leave that to our English majors who love the topic. I really want to support them with some of these other things that were pretty big that were going on in their life. So I ended up going back to the university and getting credentialed in my master's in counseling, which allowed me to work within the school system. So I was a school counselor for about 11 years. And then during that time, I transitioned into life coaching, which I got life coach certified in 2018, and then did some general life coaching and working with women, et cetera. And then kind of went full circle and came all the way back around and work exclusively with the teens and supporting them.
So what are some things that you hear from the teens all the time? Because I'm sure, that everyone listening, they may be struggling with their teens too. What types of issues are they coming to you with, and how do you support them?
Yeah. So over the years, it's interesting. I like to ask a lot of questions and pull them and see where they're at and what's going on. So this started back when I was in the school system. I would ask them, what do you need? What do you want? What is your heart telling you? And a lot of the time, the kids would say, from adults specifically, whether it be parents or adults, within the schools, we just want you guys to pay attention. Like, what does that mean? And as we do more digging, they just want us to know that we're noticing and validating them and what they're doing. Because I think oftentimes, whether you're a parent or whether you're supporting them in a school system or as their therapist or whatnot, we're wanting to make sure, are you doing the thing? Are you on top of this or that? Are you putting all your ducks in a row as you're preparing for college, et cetera? And they just want that deep down connection of us noticing, where are you? How are you doing? What's going on? Just kind of like the basics. And it almost sounds too simplified in a sense, but that's exactly the thing that they want. So oftentimes, I'll hear from parents, well, my kiddo is buried in their room and they're just kind of off doing their own thing. And sometimes it's really hard to connect with them, especially when we have social media and devices and all the things that kind of can get in the way. Just simply being with them, if they're in quiet zone, sit next to them and read a book with them. We don't have to always be asking the questions and solving the problems and figuring things out. And that's what I'm getting from the teens, that they just want us to pay attention and just notice that they're there. And when they need something, they come to us. Like, just having that accessibility, I think, is really big for them in general.
Right.
When it comes to the bigger stuff, like navigating and heading off to college and experiencing high school and getting through that in itself, I feel like our teens are struggling with the outside noise. And by that, I mean all of the things that are pinging for them outside of their own selves. So, the demands of high school, what do we need to do to set up and prepare for college? What is this person saying? What's the best advice? They have, access to the internet and all of this information. They grew up in the information age, so they can tap in, tune into all kinds of information. And then what do they do with all of this stuff that's swirling around? And I think that's where the overwhelm kicks in, and they need some guidance in tuning back into themselves, being able to hear their own voice again.
So how do you suggest we best support our kids doing all this? I mean, it's true. The kids, especially like 11th grade and then 12th grade, they have the ACTs and the SATs, and should they even take the test? They may be taking, driver's ed and wanting to take, every honors or AP class. I mean, they're overloaded as they're going through high school, besides doing their own like teen thing and hanging out with their friends and, should they work at all the extracurriculars, everything. I mean, yeah, they're bombarded.
Yeah. And my philosophy is, and this was my philosophy as well when I was in the education system and counseling at schools, creating a harmony or a balance within their life. So, not overloading with too many AP or IB coursework, finding a balance. And some of the schools will actually support you in that, and they won't allow a student to take more than 2 or 3 AP courses in a semester, et cetera. So they try to create that balance there, but having them lead a balanced life. Because the tricky piece is they're in high school, having the high school experience and navigating all of that. But then they have that additional layer, which we as adults have, where we are also prepping and planning for the next step, which is college. So planning for the future. This trend started about 10 to 12 years ago in the public education system here in California, where I live. And we started calling it 4-year planning. And before that, we really didn't have this layer upon layer of right when you get into high school freshman year, you have to begin planning those 4 years for college or next steps, et cetera. So that's when we started to see a lot of stress and overwhelm and not enjoying and living in the moment. So helping the kids balance out and incorporating fun, not something competitive, but just relaxation fun. It could be something creative, it could be crafting, it could be gathering with friends, going to see a movie. Things have opened up post pandemic, so we can kind of go out there a little bit to your comfort level, but incorporating those things, because I think we forget when we're building the resume for college, right? We want to make sure that we have extracurriculars, and we want those things to line up with our forward thinking future of where we're going and what we're doing. And a lot of the times, what I hear from the kids is, I'm stressed out because I just don't know. And I'm not ready to make that decision of this is exactly what I want to do and be ideally, 8 years from now, once I get through high school and college. I just don't know. And then on the other end, parents are saying, my biggest fear is my child's future. And ultimately, it boils down to the uncertainty, right? There are so many things that are uncertain in our world as we're navigating through circumstances when they come and they pop up. But having the belief that things are going to unfold, I'm taking the next best step right now with the future in mind. We don't have to have it specifically pinpointed with that type of stressor on top.
I know when families come to me, and typically the parents, they may be filled with financial stress. So, I help them with the financial stress, which helps with their own mental health. But, when is it time for, when should parents think, oh, maybe my child, should speak with Holly? Like, how do we know when it's, carrying over and needs extra help?
It really depends on the child. And some kiddos will come to their parents and say, I need a coach. And the kids are a little more excited about coaching versus therapy. The work I do is a hybrid blend between counseling, which is a little lighter than therapy, and life coaching. And the kids love that blend because we're not fixing something that's broken, similar to the medical model. If we break an arm, we need to repair that arm. We're fixing something that's broken, but we are together diving in, pulling out their little internal blueprint, which is where they're tapping into their voice and what they want and what lights them up as our guidance system, and helping them navigate, teaching them tools of how to handle the stress and the overwhelm and balance their life and help keep harmony between the things that they need to do and get done and be productive with versus the things that bring them joy and excitement. So it really just depends. Sometimes the kids will come forward. Other times you'll start to see signs of maybe withdrawing and not participating. And that can be a little clue that there might be some anxiety or anxiousness that's keeping them from being out there and participating, or they might be bogged down if their course load is too heavy. There are a variety of reasons to seek some outside help. And sometimes with parents, they are sharing the good message with the kiddos to help keep them online and in track and on track and support them. But it's kind of falling on deaf ears, and you want an additional person to come in and support and listen and help guide. Because as a parent, as you know, it's hard to be all of those things for them.
Definitely, definitely. So as the kids are preparing to head off to college, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to them? And I guess at the same time, you know, I know plenty of parents that they start going through, like empty nest syndrome, and how are they going to manage? Like, how do you address all that?
The key, I think, in general, the overarching umbrella for kids and families is to keep the communication open. And we hear communication as the key to so many things, whether it's couples relationships or parent child relationships, but keeping the communication open and keeping that door open, even though they might be miles and miles away, and having that conversation with them that home is your touch point. So as you need something, though you're many miles away, you can always contact us. We can always support you and listen or problem solve, depending on what they need. Sometimes they just want to vent it out. Other times they need help problem solving. And the colleges have so many resources these days. I had an opportunity a couple of years ago to tour a number of colleges that were in my local area, and I was pleasantly surprised at how many support services they have on campus. So they will have those that can support with therapeutic issues, so that if there's an old trauma that is popping up that they need to resolve, it could be simple logistics such as how do I handle the overwhelm and balance things out, or manage being in a new place, dealing with maybe different types of weather. We have kids in California that head off to snowy areas, and it can be quite traumatizing in the winter. But
Let me
there's
just say this though. I have worked with families where there were students that were, whether they were in therapy, they were working with counselors, and they did need extra support. When people are, families are looking at different colleges, I just want to suggest, see what services they offer. Make sure that's going to be a good fit for your child if they need to reach out and utilize those services on campus.
exactly. And they have therapeutic services, they have coaching services. Some schools have peer advising where they can get connected with peers to support them as well. It's the same type of vetting out process and exploration that you would do if you have a child with dietary needs, which is incredible to see all of the dietary options and things that they have available for the kids and accommodations, etc. But keeping communication open and maybe even setting a little schedule where you do touch base at the end of a week, or maybe it's at the beginning of a week, where you can still keep in contact with them. A lot of it is listening. They really, really want to be heard. And the clients that I have in my practice, the teens, at the end of each session, we will recap and talk about what their takeaway is or their golden nugget. And a vast majority of the time, it was, I just needed this opportunity to lay it all out on the table. maybe they don't want the problem or the situation solved, but they want just the opportunity to get it out of their system. And something that I share with my teens and adults that I know is when we're working with emotional stuff, there is a right and a wrong way to handle those emotions that are coming up and bubbling up. And oftentimes in our society, we think we need to squash them down, put them aside, get to school. It's all about our brains. But our brain and our emotions and our bodies are all working in tandem together. And our body is designed to process an emotion, which means we get a feeling. It could be anxiousness, fear, joy, happiness, whatever that feeling is. We want to allow ourselves to feel it, make sense of it, and then let it go. So we need to get that out. And we do that through talking, crying as we're shedding tears, we're releasing, going on a run, doing something that supports you in processing that emotion and getting that out of your body. You don't want it just sitting there and festering, because then that turns into disease. And then we have other issues that come from that. So teaching them just that general idea of using your body to get the emotion, process it through, and then we let it go. And that's a lot of the work that I do with the teens is how do we manage our emotions? And then how do we manage all of these thoughts that are running rampant in our brains as well?
That's fabulous. I'm so glad you were able to join us today.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you
So
for
much
having
great information. And you work nationwide, correct? You work with teens all over?
I do. I work remotely, so all over.
Tell everyone how they can reach out to you.
The best way to find me is on my website, which is hollymclaincoaching.com. And I can spell that if you have listeners that aren't watching us visually. It's HOLLYMCCLAIN coaching.com. And then I've got some connections to social media and you can peruse the website.
Fabulous. I want to thank you so much for being here. And I'm Vicki Vollweiler, and this is Preparing for College, hosted by College Financial Prep.
Thank you, Vicki.
Take care, Holly. Speak to you soon.